welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Today I'm talking about The Money Movers, an Australian film made in 1978. Put it on last night. I didn't have too much time. I was tired. This comes in at 90 minutes, and so that was perfect for that reason alone. But believe it or not, I've got a history with this film. Most people have probably never heard of this movie. It was... Well, I'll take it back to 1988 when I saw it. So the movie had been around for 10 years, never heard of it. I was 15 in 88, in year 10. I'd badly dislocated my knee for the first time. I've done it another 3 times since. I'm a croc. And I was stuck at home during winter. Back in those days, the VHS was a godsend for these sort of situations. So Dad went down to the local video shop, came home with a stack of those weekly rentals to keep me occupied. This was one of them. I'd never heard of it. I had the cultural cringe back then, so something Australian didn't really seem to offer me much. I reckon I watched the other 5 or 6 movies first, and then this one was still kicking around. And I thought, oh, bugger it, I'll put it on. And, it really surprised me. My memories of it were that it was a cracking little crime film that got straight down to business and never let up. That it had some really brutal scenes in it with a really Australian flavour, made by the South Australian Film Commission. And so nearly 40 years on, nearly 50 years on from when the movie was made, I wanted to see if it still held up. What's it about? It's about a Sydney cash security company that's responsible for transporting millions of dollars between banks and businesses, driving, armored trucks. And obviously, every run carries risk, and every guard knows things can go wrong in an instant. What happens is there's a violent payroll robbery pretty near the start. One of the trucks gets turned over. A bystander, who's a butcher of all things, gets blown away in a particularly bloody scene. And obviously, questions begin to be asked about whether someone on the inside might have been involved. So the police come in, and suspicion quickly spreads throughout the company. It's interesting. It takes a while to realise who's doing what and who's clean and who's not. Nobody seems completely above suspicion for a while. Some of the guards have criminal connections, and others have got financial issues, and There's a lot of long-standing friendships beginning to fracture as the trust slowly disappears. There's a union element here as well, which is very 1978 Australia. The unions were still very strong back then. So there's 2 or 3 union meetings that happen throughout this movie, which is a quaint little nod to the past. But at its heart, it's a story about ordinary working Aussie blokes doing a very dangerous job, where one bad decision or betrayal can get someone killed. And being around that much money always raises the possibility of temptation stepping in, and criminals around this area are always probing for weaknesses, whether they've got insiders or not, and the security company's trying to stay one step ahead. As we go further into the film, different schemes overlap each other, and it is a bit tricky to see who's playing who or who's on both sides. Bruce Beresford directed this. He builds the tension really well. There's not constant action, but there are 3 or 4 big action scenes that are incredible. But by the time we get to the end and the climactic robbery arrives, the tension's really high because we've spent time getting to know everyone. And the final act just erupts into the most violent and realistic shootouts in Australian cinema from this era or any other, in my view. So yeah, that's what it's about. I just wanted to take a sidestep here and talk about my impressions of what Australia was like back in the late 70s. Um, this was one of the unexpected pleasures of revisiting this film. When I watched it the first time around when I was 15, I was still too close to those times to even care or think about, oh yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of the things hadn't changed that much in 10 years in Australia. So I really enjoyed getting the chance to revisit the Australia of the late 70s. So to set the scene, 1978, I was 5, turning 6 that year. So obviously my memories are those of a little kid, but they are surprisingly vivid, and they're some of my earliest memories of being alive. And so it is true that watching this film did feel like opening a family photo album, odd as that may seem. Not because I'd lived these events, but this brought back so many memories of the Australia that I can still remember, and which has faded away a lot. My memories of that time are that sport really started to overwhelm me and become a centerpiece in my life, and that hasn't changed too much. But everything was so much more vivid then. It seemed like sportsmen were gods to me, and that's based too on the reactions of some of the adults in my life at the time. My dad was, both my parents were interested in watching all sorts of sports, but they weren't fanatical. They didn't get crazy about it. But some of my parents' friends were really into sports. So rugby league. This is when the New South Wales Rugby League was really a big deal, and you had these great Sydney rivalries. So it was just a Sydney-based competition then, and the thing that stuck out immediately was the Manly Warringah Western Suburbs rivalry, the rich versus the poor. Even though in reality wasn't what it was, but it was brilliantly marketed that way. And seeing the tension before those games, and then remembering some of the things that happened, reading about it in the papers or hearing about it on TV, listening to Rex Mossop's iconic commentary on Channel 7, and just watching what those guys were doing to each other. It just felt very exciting to a young lad watching, and that's the rugby league that I still love to this day. I kind of dip in and out of rugby league now. It's a totally different sport. I understand why we can't have the brutality and the toughness that it used to have, but they were just blokes who had a second job. Actually, they used to work for a living in the banks, the schools, wherever, and then they'd play footy on the weekend. So I'm in awe of those guys. Cricket was another big thing in my life. I got a cricket bat. I remember as a 5-year-old, I can still remember going out on the front lawn with it and getting Dad to bowl to me. Cricket really was the first thing in my life that I got obsessed with, and I spent years devouring the stats, watching the games, playing the game at school, before school, at school, after school, on the weekends with mates, in teams. I went back to it in my late 30s, early 40s, and played in a 2020 competition here in Canberra. It's still magical to me, and it's one of those sports you really have to have grown up with, I think, to really love. But anyway, 78, this was the second year of World Series cricket that was overtaking the sport and changing everything. And I remember hearing, this "Come on Aussie, come on" jingle that was a big deal at the time. Whenever I hear that jingle, I feel like I'm there in the late 70s in summer. Dennis Lillee, the Chappell brothers, those guys were gods to me. They were gods to me. Greg Chappell came out to bat. I just love watching him. The straight drives. He wouldn't play anything square of the wicket for the first 20 runs, and then he'd have this little flick off his hip. He just strode around majestically. He had the beard. Lillee, shirt half open, the gold chain. that long run up, flicking the sweat off his forehead, glaring at the batsman. You know, the West Indies, the hatred of the Poms. God, what a time to be alive. And yeah, you know. Anyway, I better keep this moving. So look, Australia was really different back then. It felt culturally different. Today, obviously, we're heavily influenced by America. That's understandable because we get the majority of our soft culture, a soft power, I should say, from America. So, you know, TV, movies, music, even literature is heavily American influenced, and I get it. It's good. It's quality. This isn't an American bashing thing, but back then we were a much more Anglo-centric UK, even European society here in Australia, or the pockets of Australia that I grew up in anyway. And our TV, our humour, and everyday life was very influenced by the British. So our you know, afternoon TV for me back then was Goodies, Grange Hill, Doctor Who, Metal Mickey, all these kind of comedy shows, and some of them, I mean, Goodies used to be on at 6 o'clock on ABC. Some really risque stuff in there. Some those guys were the legends of getting jokes in under the line. I mean, it's different times, of course, but yeah, lots of satire as well. And Faulty Towers was around that time. Monty Python was huge. So you get where I'm going with this, is that UK attitudes, and most of us, you know, I've got British heritage. Most of us have got close ties to the UK, and our society reflected that. It was a pretty tough old world back then. I grew up in Wollongong, and I was surrounded by migrants from England, Scotland, and then you had the Italians and the Greeks, Yugoslavians, what they were called back then. Because of the steelworks there that drove Wollongong, BHP was big there. It's been cut back now. But my dad worked there for a while at the steelworks, so he had mates from Poland and Greece and all over the place. And yeah, we had a really multicultural town in Wollongong, and that's great. It got me used to that from the get-go. And that multicultural mix just felt normal to me. And other things in this film that highlight a different world back then is all the cigarette advertising everywhere. You know, driving down the street, you can see Peter Stuyvesant advertising. Kingswood's everywhere. Kingswood's, this is before Commodores really got going. Kingswood's everywhere. The old Australian paper banknotes that got phased out gradually in the 80s. Short-sleeved business shirts. That is a look that you don't see anymore, and thank God for that. It was never the greatest look. My dad used to rock a short-sleeved business shirt, shorts in summer, and knee-high socks, and all the blokes did. That's another look that hasn't come back, and thank God for that too. Other things I noticed were the exposed timber beams inside some of the more upmarket homes. So the home of that Charles Bud Tingwell has in this, as the criminal mastermind, has exposed timber beams. That used to be a sign of wealth. Some of the homes had these swinging wooden kitchen doors that seemed to be everywhere. That were cool. There's also this office scene at the start where Lucky Grills, who plays one of the bosses, casually taps his secretary on the bum as he strolls in. No one says boo. It's just normal. Not great, but that's reflecting the times. He'd be gone now, and quite rightly so. Another thing that struck me is how physically active everyone looks. So Brian Brown, Terry Donovan, even the background extras are a lot leaner. look like they've been out in the sun, working physical jobs, walking around more, playing more sport. You know, the old cliche but true, kids disappearing outside after breakfast, coming home when it got dark. Sitting down to watch TV was not something you did earlier in the day. It was something you did at the end of the day, if you didn't have anything else to do. You'd still hang out with your mates and get outside. But yeah, this is the Australia that I recall of the 70s. I remember Grease as a film was very big that year. You had Travolta and Olivia Newton-John everywhere because of the "You're the One That I Want" song as well. There was a lot more Australian music in the top 40. There was a young band called Midnight Oil just starting out. In Excess were a year or two away. The Angels, AC/DC released one of their best albums, Power Age, that year, and they were already a massive force, and it started to move. Well, we're over in the UK a lot, but Cold Chisel, of course, starting out. Yeah, it was just it was a much more Australian time. Things felt more laconic, that larrikin, Aussie thing, good and bad. Look, I'm the first to admit that rose-colored glasses, you forget a lot of the not great things back then. The food wasn't great, I can tell you that. I'm so glad we got some overseas influences here for the food, widened our eyes. But yeah, I've still got a lot of nostalgia for that time. So anyway, there you go. I've set the scene. So I think this film works for people of my vintage and older because it's a time capsule, and it's always nice to get those memories because it's rare. Now, Bruce Beresford, he made this film, and when I read out some of the things that he made, you'll realise he's one of the forgotten legends of Australian cinema. But The Money Movers really captures this country that was just starting to change, but was still rough around the edges. And I think it was an early look at what Bruce Beresford was showing that he could do. He wrote and directed this film. It's really economical. There's nothing wasted, nothing unnecessary. I'm a big fan of that. No flashy camera work trying to impress. He's not an auteur by any sense. Just introduces the characters, establishes their world. You live with them for a while, and then he steadily tightens the screws until everything explodes near the end. He went on to make Breaker Morant a couple of years later. That's a legendary film, especially in Australia. I can remember watching that at school. Puberty Blues, which has had a second life as a TV show, and again is just a straight ahead look at beach culture and teenage culture. He then went to America and made some really great films. One of them was Tender Mercies with Duvall, Robert Duvall, which won... I can't remember if it won Best Film or maybe Robert Duvall got Best Actor only. But anyway, great film. Haven't seen that for years. He directed Driving Miss Daisy, which I haven't seen. It just, I don't know, never seemed like something I'd like, and it got a lot of flack at the time. But anyway, it's a highly recognised film. He made another film called Black Robe, which I can recall thinking was quite interesting too in the early 90s. And of course, Mao's Last Dancer, which is an incredible true story. So yeah, he's a national treasure, as is Brian Brown. He's not top billed in this. This is one of his really early films, and it's fascinating to see him. He's even more of just a boy from Bankstown. I think he was from Bankstown. Before his international breakthrough, he's just a lad. Within a few years, he'd be starring in some reasonably big miniseries here in Australia before he cracked it overseas with the FX movies and then Cocktail. But like his wife, Rachel Ward, who she made it big, of course, with Against All Odds and a couple of other films, but they both seem to just prefer to be in Australia. appearing in Australian-made productions and producing and getting involved in that side of things. And of course, Brian Brown just kept on making incredible cameos in films or smaller roles, like in Two Hands with Heath Ledger, and he just has this charisma. And apart from being a great actor, he's a better actor than people give him credit for. But he has got to be nearly the most Australian actor I can think of. Never feels like he's acting, just feels authentic. Tough guy without trying too hard. A guy you'd like to be mates with. Terence Donovan, Jason Donovan's father. I think he even appeared in Neighbours for a while after Jason had finished, or I don't know, around that time. But yeah, he was a genuine leading man in Australian film and TV around this time. He's great in this. He's probably the main character in this. He's one of the guards. He's brothers with Brian Brown's character, older brother. He projects authority without needing to shout. Again, he's a commanding presence, completely believable as a career security guard, as is Brian Brown. Couple of knockabout fellas. Ed Devereaux's in this, best remembered by many Australians from Skippy and Me Too. Reminder of how versatile Australian actors had to be. He's got like the whistleblower, or I don't know what you'd like to call him. He's the good guy in this, and he does it well. Alan Castle, always reliable. Seen him in a million Australian things. I remember him from a TV show called Special Squad, about cops in the 80s. He was also in The Club with Jack Thompson. A mainstay, playing a much dodgier character in this than I recall. He always used to be a clean skin, I think. Lucky Grills, just one of those instantly recognisable Australian faces. Funny guy, terrific as Conway, perfect in the role. Just not what you'd expect to see. Well, you wouldn't see this guy anymore. But yeah, perfect in this film. Charles Bud Tingwell, saved him for last. One of Australia's great character actors. Younger audiences might know him from The Castle, where he plays the retired judge who gets them over the line. Older audiences know that he seemed to elevate everything he appeared in. Brings a touch of class. Brings credibility to anything that he's in. Great to see him as a bad guy in this one, and really good at it. He's the one with the exposed timber beams in his house, and he's a really crooked guy. He doesn't have many scenes, but very convincing. So that was a nice little treat. Some thoughts about this film. This is one of Australia's most violent films. Watching it, I realised that around this time we were making some. The Removalists was a stage play that was very popular at the time, and it was quite violent. Stir, there was a prison film, Stir, that came out a year after this with Brian Brown. I remember that being pretty authentic as well. We portrayed things on screen back then as they were. We're pretty risque as well. Don's Party, Alvin Purple, Number 96 on TV. We were experimenting in the 70s. Gough Whitlam had won the election in 72. A younger prime minister for a few years. We were coming out of our conservative shell a bit. And this film lets it all hang out. There's nudity, but it's not gratuitous. It's just, well, I didn't think it was anyway. It's just there. There's no big deal made of it. But yeah, it's quite violent. The butcher gets blown apart at the start, and very bloody actually. There's a shootout near the end that's particularly bloody as well. Reminded me at times of Sam Peckinpah's best work. There's a good early shootout in a tyre shop, Lots of shotgun work in this one. The fight scenes are really good too, quite brutal and realistic. Like now, you can hit a bloke 20 times, hit him over the head with a steel bar, and he still gets up. These fights in this film look nearly realistic. You know, you get hit in the head a few times, you're going down, or you're staggering, or there's blood everywhere. It looked realistic to me. There's some toe cutting in this film. You don't see that too often these days, but it was a big thing back then. Chopper Read, this was his period. It was 1978 that he took the judge hostage and got another 15 years for his efforts. So yeah, it's quite a brutal film. Lots of great action done properly. Early on, the security van smashing straight through the glass shop front to stop a robbery. Great stuff. That's how we solve problems in the 70s. You know, everything's physical in this film. There's CGI. What's that? Real stunt work. There's a great scene where Terry Donovan's trying to escape from Bud Tingwell's exposed beam house, and with handcuffs on, jumping through windows and rolling around, kicking guys in the nuts. It's really well done and doesn't look fake. So well done. Everyone's dirty in this film. There's nobody who's completely honest. Even the good guys are pretending to be things that they're not. The really bad guys are very bad. The cops. Everyone's either planning a robbery, thinking about a robbery, trying to do a robbery before someone else does it, or has suspicious pasts. I love the cynical atmosphere in this. So I do think that this is a forgotten Australian crime and film classic. I've never heard anyone ever talk about The Money Movers. I hear lots about, obviously around this time, Mad Max the following year, quite rightly so. Picnic at Hanging Rock, Gallipoli, Breaker Morant, films with more majesty to them, I suppose, or class. But if you're after a lean, hard-edged Australian crime thriller, this needs to be watched. And it's another reminder of just how good some Australian filmmaking was around this time and coming into the 80s. It was really gritty. It wasn't trying to overplay its hand. I highly recommend it. Lots of my favourite moments, well, these are my favourite moments. The opening payroll robbery with the masks is fantastic. The driving through the shop window I talked about. I love some of the terminology. I love how they call bolt cutters for toe cutting. They call them nail clippers in this. That was fantastic. That was just, yeah. I think the action scenes in this are done really well. It looks like they're really getting hit. So look, is this a date film? Highly unlikely. Unless your date already loves gritty Australian crime films from the 70s, there are much easier choices out there to get where you need to get. Hangover film? Yeah, I think so. It's only 90 minutes, moves quickly, never becomes there is. I did find it slightly confusing at times, but not enough to worry. It's just an entertaining crime thriller. There's no deeper motives. There's no philosophizing. Yeah, it'll pick you up. My final thoughts. A lot of times, childhood favourites don't survive a revisit, especially 40 years later. This one does. It's lean, it's tough. It's packed with terrific Australian actors before many became household names. And more importantly for me, it brings back so much nostalgia and a version of Australia that's largely disappeared. And I really love that. I love feeling something when I'm watching a film, apart from if a film's made well or the performances are good, the technical stuff. I love to feel something, and this rewatch was so rewarding for someone who's grown up in Australia. So check it out. I really urge you to check it out if you like gritty crime movies, full stop. But if you're also interested in getting a snapshot into the Sydney of 1978, can highly recommend this film too. So that's it. That's Money Movers, 1978. Thanks for listening as always. See you next time.